Although young for a furbolg, Torbek lived more than most adventurers could ever dream of. Captured by the same sellswords that butchered his parents in front of him, Torbek was forced to live in a cage until his body matured. He knew his fate was to be harvested for parts, which would be then sold on the black market, the same fate that befell his parents before him. For a long time, he was convinced his prayers to the ancestors went unanswered, until a group of dwarves freed him and cut the sellswords down where they stood. He was offered safety by one of his rescuers, an older dwarf by the name of Heidel. The two eventually became friends, bonding over their different understanding of what happened to a soul after death. Finding similarities between his new friend and his late father, Torbek eventually joined Heidel in his worship of Anubis, the god of death. Many years later, the temple Torbek served received a plea for help from a witch, the mooncaller Helene, informing them that a great evil was coming. Torbek was one of the few who responded. On his way to the summons, Torbek saved what remained of Vale's 42nd Regiment. A half-elf and a dragonborn were all that remained. The two agreed to join Helena's cause when needed, but until then had to travel to Deligan on their own private mission. Still a wanderer by nature, Torbek jumped on the chance to travel somewhere that until then had been too dangerous to go out alone. Fueled by curiosity, Torbek set off with the odd pair towards the home base of the very same sellswords that stole his family from him.
In this world, basically, furblogs are hunted for their own magical properties of their own, like skin and arms and everything like that. They believe it's kind of like almost an Eastern style medicine thing where certain body parts can be dried and used for magical components. So basically he's kind of spent his whole life on the run. In fact, both his mother and father were killed for their own body parts. So he was captured himself, caged. His dad, in fact, was he wasn't a cleric as such, but he was trying to spend a lot of time studying, trying to understand how to help move souls on from one plane of existence to another. So Torbek, basically that's where he got his passion for learning the way the grave cleric was taking on his father's teachings and kind of applying it to an actual physical teaching. So these dwarves, they were clerics and other holy men kind of, or knights in their own way. They basically helped teach me, or teach Torbek, a lot of the ways that he knows. So I think one of them was a grave cleric also to Anubis, and Anubis is the god who basically judges whether they go on to certain up to plane or down a plane, or that kind of, they kind of weigh their soul essentially as such. And that's like the actual fundamental teachings that certain clerics and learned classes have, and Torbek was kind of found an attraction to that, where he had his father's way of trying to guide spirits but in a natural sense, and this is kind of like the structured, learned way of doing it.